Welcome back to the coffee shop, everybody. Good morning. It's your boy Zach here with my co-host Kevin on the Coffee Shop Sports Podcast. How you doing this morning, Kev?
Dude, I'm doing so phenomenal, and I really want to make our viewers' day as phenomenal as mine's going to be. So, as hard as this was, I have a little on-air surprise for everybody. I brought a Whole Foods Groundwork can of Nitro cold brew, and I'm gonna crack it and pour it on the air. Just because I feel like the ASMR. I mean, you come for the sports, you stay for the coffee, and you put up with the ASMR. That's kind of
No,
our
this
thing.
is now an ASMR podcast.
Yeah, this is actually.
Yeah.
I'm now opening the can. All right, ready? Listen to this stuff. No shit. Listen to this shit. And for the YouTube viewers.
I really thought I was going to be able to hear the pour.
You know,
but
I should have done it in the
pour.
mic, but I wanted the people to see it though. You're going to see the foam start to form at the top since it's a nitro.
Where
And
do
this
you
is-
get those ice cubes?
Dude, I have an ice maker.
They look like fish eyes.
I believe it's called bean ice. I believe that's the term.
Bean ice?
Yeah, like they're like bean shaped.
Like bean ice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bean ice. Horrible.
Cool.
Very bad. This worst start of the podcast ever, but we're not
Rough
starting
start.
over. We're
Rough
into
start on the jokes.
No, it's actually fire. It's actually fire. I'm doing a ginger shot as well. I'm doing my whole morning routine on the show. I wanted people to see just how dedicated to the life we are. All right, Zach, what are we starting off with?
Little first sip question. We're gonna hop over to the NBA. Little quick reactions. We are 6 weeks in now to the NBA season, which for the NBA that's not too much. Yeah,
Not
6
6
games
weeks.
in. Sorry, 6 games in. That's a week and a half for the NBA season, basically.
He's football talk. He's football.
Yeah, I was football focused there. We're 6 games in the NBA season, so we've seen these teams a little bit, you know. So just some quick reactions from you as to what you've seen, kind of what you're thinking for some of these teams, and what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think what jumps out to me most is something that's not going to surprise either of us, and that's just the absolute dominance of the Celtics. That team is so special, man. Things are clicking. We've seen some really, really great performances from their new acquisitions. Obviously, Kristaps Porzingis was very instrumental in taking down the Knicks in first game. You know, a lot of great stuff from Drew Holiday. He's just going to give you that 3-and-D stuff. He's going to do that. He's going to play that playoff basketball all year round. He's starting early, and Tatum is probably going to be an MVP candidate this year, I'd say. So that's pretty exciting. That's probably the biggest thing that's jumped out to me is just how great they've looked. Yeah.
Yep.
How about you, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, Tatum's averaging 30 points a game through 6 games, which is crazy. It's 5th in the NBA right now. They have a couple stat leaders as well. Derek White is 2nd in 3-point percentage. He's shooting 57.9. And they need that from their ancillary players to continue rolling like this. They look great. They look really, really good. I hope Jason Tatum has taken like a little bit of a leap. The one that kind of stepped out to me is on your own Knicks team over there, and it's that the Knicks cannot win with Julius Randle playing the way he is. They just can't. Yeah. He's still getting some double doubles, but his field goal percentage is absolutely brutal. He's not playing like an all pro. He's not playing at that caliber, and they're struggling without it. It's Jalen Brunson or bust right now.
Yeah, prior to last night's game against the Clippers, which was a dust-up, let's be real, and Julius was back, 27 points. He had a shot pretty well. But prior to last night's game, he had the worst shooting percentage of any player in their first 6 games since 1959. So
that's just, you can't win with that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I'm one of the there's about 7 of us Knicks fans who are still like, yeah, no, we support Julius. And it's like, I just feel like I've seen this movie before, and I feel like he usually course corrects. I hate overreacting. I don't know if you remember, Zach, but when Wemby had his summer league debut, he was already being talked about as a bust because he wasn't good. And everybody, and I remember the 3-day stretch on the Twitter sphere where people were dunking on Wemby. He got into an altercation with Britney Spears, and Wemby was canceled, and we hated him, and he was bad at basketball. And I'm like, can we wait? Can we wait until this man plays a real game? And then, of course, the Britney Spears stuff, it was like a security thing, and it was ridiculous. I mean, I don't know anything about what happened, but it didn't seem like it was worth canceling Wemby over and saying he was a bust.
I don't know if people were like, and again, I mean, I know I saw the same things on Twitter that you do, but I don't think people were canceling Wemby. I think that's a situation where the loudest people are the first one heard. So there's like 5 people who are going for clickbait, but like the majority of people just weren't overreacting.
Yeah.
I think what we've seen from Julius Randle is a little bit like actually concerning. Like it's not clickbaity for me. It's like, this man's not playing as well he has for a lot of his career.
Yeah. Worst field goal percentage since 1959 is not clickbait. That's actually what it was.
That's facts.
And it was not, it wasn't great. I'm gonna stay in the Flames. He had a good game last night. He's a streaky player. I think he's a special player. I think he is probably transitioning. I would like to see him transition into that next chapter of his career. He kind of played the pseudo 1B role last year. Personally, I'm very comfortable if he steps down to the 2 role on this year's Knicks team. And I don't mean to speak too soon, because if you overreact in a bad way, you also might overreact in a good way. But RJ Barrett is looking every bit like the guy they drafted in the top 5. So if RJ Barrett can step into the 2 and Randall can slide down to the 3 even, and you have a 2-time All-NBA in the last 3 years player in the 3, and he's just playing smarter and playing more efficient basketball, and the hustle's been there. His effort has been there all year, which has been a problem with Julius Randle in the past. So I will take the good with the bad, and I'll hold steady with this Knicks team at the moment.
And then another pointer here, there's only one team in the NBA that's won 7 games, and that's the NBA championship Nuggets from last season. They are just as good as they were.
Where's the fall off?
What's to say there? I mean, Bruce Brown's gone. Sure, it doesn't look like they're really missing him that much. Michael Never Swing the Walk Porter has assists through 7 games. So it's a new season there in Nuggets, but it's the same old, same old. Jokic looks just as good as he always has. Jamal Murray is playing that 2 slot really well. They're playing efficient basketball, good defense. I mean, they're going to be a force again this year.
The Nuggets are the team that your basketball coach should show you. They just play the most X's and O's appropriate basketball I've ever seen in my life. It's so fundamentally sound. And
I mean,
there's something to be said for that.
Not a ton of wasted movement in their plays at all, really. No, they look great, man. They have not taken a step off. I don't know if you followed the Michael Porter assist extravaganza, but I believe he had his first assist in a couple seasons this game. Let me vet this real quick.
I wasn't as up on it as you, but that's actually blasphemy. If that's real, that's pretty insane.
His nickname is Michael Never Swing the Rock Porter.
That's a great nickname.
Because he just doesn't pass.
So
it's like he gets the ball, shoots. Yeah, okay, here we go. His career assist line. This is season by season. 1, 1.5, 1, 1, and then this year he has 2 assists. So he's already has more assists than the rest of his career.
Per game. These are
per season.
Okay. Oh my God, Michael Porter.
So
that is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. So he has 2 now.
He's got 2 now.
Good for him.
So on his career, he's averaging 1.1 assists per season.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard. No, I'm not even kidding. I don't think you and I are like, you're a better basketball player than me. I'll say it on the podcast. The streets know it now. I think you and I in the NBA could get 2 assists.
I don't think I could get a single assist in the NBA.
I am 85% sure that
Unless
I
you count an
could.
assist as like I get the inbound pass, immediately give it to another player and he shoots.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm not even sure I could get that pass off.
I think you can. I think you could luck into assists more often than Michael Porter Jr. gets assists. Period. That is so legendary.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
love
the
that.
dude does not pass the ball. I mean, he takes more contested shots than I think anybody in the NBA does. He just shoots. That's what he's there for.
Really funny. I
You know,
also. No, go ahead.
Were you on Twitter when everybody was talking about like, oh, would you take $10,000 or
Oh yeah.
10 points in the NBA for $1 million?
Yeah,
like
it's very funny.
no one's getting 10
Stuff
points
like
in the
that.
NBA.
Yeah, there are lines to those, right? Like, see, because there are people, right? There's the consensus. Like the smart people are like, if you think you're getting a yard in a football game, you're an idiot. And it's like, okay, but let's put context on everything because there are wrinkles, there are ways around these things that seem so obvious, right? Like, for example, we could all complete a bubble screen.
No. No, I don't. I genuinely don't think we could all create. Do you know how fast you need to be able to snap, look, and get that ball out on a bubble screen?
If you already know where it's going, you could just catch it.
We don't have the arm strength for that. Do you know how fast that ball's moving?
Man.
To get by those DNs?
Maybe. I don't know. But my point is some of those are like get 3 catches in an NFL game or you know, you're obviously not getting 3 catches in
You're not getting 3.
Yeah.
But the one 10 points in the NBA.
Absolutely
I don't care
not.
what you say. Neither of us are getting 10 points in the NBA.
There is you
can't.
I don't think I can get
a
point. I don't think I can get 1 point.
Not one.
I really don't.
We'd get locked down.
When I was in high school, I was as unathletic as I am now. And I was very good friends with a lot of the guys on the basketball team, and they were like joking around. They were like, "Come on, 1v1 me." And homie was in a backpack. Homie had a backpack on, and I was in my gym clothes, and he was in his street clothes. And he came up and 7-zipped me, and I did not get a shot on basket. And that's a high school basketball player.
And so, like, it's not happening. Or getting 10 yards rushing. I'm not. I think
I could get 1.
I don't. I don't even know if I could get 1. To be honest with you, maybe if I fell forward for a yard.
Well, this is where we'll find out really how much confidence plays a role into it, because you are definitely more athletic than me. So if you couldn't get a yard and you're so sure you couldn't, but I think I could, maybe the guy who thinks they can and the guy who thinks they can't are both right, Zach.
I want to see you think you can when you're looking at the D line.
Yeah.
It's fun now when you're in your office and there's a microphone in front of you. But when there's a 6'3", 300-pound man staring you in the eyes, I want to see if you're as confident that you could go get a yard.
Hey, man. Sometimes
I watched Brees Hall last night get yards for multiple times in that game.
Yeah. Brees, that was a tough game. We do have to talk about that game. But before we wrap the NBA talk, I want to touch on a couple of things. So the Mavericks are great. Luka is also an MVP candidate. The Warriors are great. Who saw that coming? Shocker.
Yeah, they're playing good.
Yeah. I'm looking at teams like the Rockets, who are in 8th place. Kind of bizarre. Did not foresee that with their weird offseason. People were very displeased with their offseason. Me personally, being the Bills fan that I am, I hate the term fraud because it's been thrown around a lot about my teams. But are the Suns on fraud watch?
I don't know if I'd necessarily go as far to say like fraud watch. They haven't played a lot of games together.
A lot of injuries.
KD. I'm not really worried about that.
Okay. What about the Kings? The Kings are 2-4 to start the season, also missing De'Aaron Fox. NBA is a lot different than the NFL in that if you're missing one guy, you're missing 20% of your starting lineup. It's very different. So there is grace given to these teams. It's early, right? I'm the one who's saying don't overreact, and then I'm like fraud watch. But what do you think? Because I know Sabonis is pretty much the lone dog over there in Sacramento right now, but they're
not the lone dog. I mean, Tyrese. Oh, I'm sorry. Halliburton's at the Pacers now. I'm tripping. Yeah. I mean, Sabonis is the best player on that team, but I think
Fox might be better when he's healthy.
Fox will be back when he's healthy. I'm not really worried about them. They're still middle of the pack. And with the
I think
Rockets, I
a little
mean,
better
they
than
changed a lot.
weren't they like the 2 seed last year? I think they might be a little better than middle of the pack.
They were pretty high up there.
Yeah, I like the Kings, man. I think they're a good team.
But I mean, I'm saying they're middle of the pack right now. Like,
yeah,
they're 2-4, but it's so early in the season. Like, they could immediately be 6-4 in a couple weeks. Like, I wouldn't be like shocked, but I do think they are going to be way worse until De'Aaron Fox comes back.
And do the Spurs have any sleeper potential with Wemby and all their young talent? Do they have any sleeper potential? I personally think they do.
I do, but I don't think it'll be there necessarily this year. Yeah. They've won more games than people expected them. They're 3-4. They beat the Suns in that
I think they beat them twice. No, did they just beat them once?
Yeah. I didn't actually watch that second game, but I do think
the one game where Wemby had the crazy like steal and
the steal to win the game. I mean, they're better than. I mean, Popovich is one of the best coaches.
Right.
They now have an insane talent in Wembanyama, but I don't think they're there this year. I don't think they're going to be playoff competitive this year.
If I'm a play-in team and I draw the 7'4" freak who can shoot, I'm pissed. I'm like, come on, man. I'm supposed to play the Pat Bev led Timberwolves. What the hell? You know, I'd be so mad.
And you get the Spurs instead.
You get Wemby and Pop. Yeah, that ain't fair.
Wemby's been kind of streaky to this point as well. So I
remember you and me on opening night sweating his PRA line, freaking getting pissed.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to take some time to really feel super comfortable. When that happens, though, I mean, he's going to be a force. And he'll get bigger, too, which is scary. Like, he will. Yeah. I mean, I remember Giannis coming into the league was kind of scrawny. Yeah. And he's not anymore. Yeah. And I think you'll see something similar with Wembanyama. Like, he'll fill out as he's here.
Kristaps is pretty yoked
filled out a bit too. I mean, he's in San Antonio. It's hard not to live in San Antonio and start to fill out a little bit. There's a lot of
eating all that queso,
a lot of barbecue queso there.
Hell yeah!
But let's move on from NBA. It's a good season so far, but it's still early. So let's move on to what's in the thick of things. We are 8 weeks in now. No, 9 weeks in now to the NFL season.
It's so fast. There's more behind us than there is in front of us, bro.
Yep.
Oh, that's so sad.
Well, not unless you include playoffs.
Yeah, for fantasy though.
For fantasy purposes, yes.
Yeah.
And my redraft team is not doing great.
Dude, what happened to us, man? We're analysts.
It's brutal. I won every other game this week, so I went 7 for 8 this week, but my loss was in the league I care about the most. So that is unfortunate.
I can hear the pain in your voice.
Yeah, I had to clear that real quick.
That was so funny. No, I'm in a league. I've been texting you about it because literally, bro, across the board, 8-1, 7-2, 6-3, and then just boom, outlier, 3-6. Absolutely depressing. It's one of my best teams. I'm in the top half of the league in scoring. I have Josh Allen. I have Stephon Diggs. It's just been the way that the cookie crumbles. I needed Eckler not to drop a 20 burger last night to win.
Yeah, that's.
And he dropped 22. It's just that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's fantasy. You know, like I'm lamenting, I'm waxing poetic about it on the show, but our listeners know, and you know everybody who plays knows it's cruel bitch. It's the name of the game.
I had Brees. I had Eckler going into last night against Brees and the Chargers defense, and I was like, maybe I have a shot. And the Chargers defense dropped a 30 bomb.
Yeah.
And
well, that punt return touchdown, you were pretty much.
I know. As soon as the game started, I was like, oh, I'm done. I'm washed tonight. So good luck. See you next week. I'm 3-6 in that league, which is brutal. Second to last place in my home redraft league. Yeah, you hate to see it. Mm-hmm. But I'm doing okay elsewhere.
Yep.
So let's give a little recap from the weekend before we get into our next segment. What are some things that stood out to you that you saw over this weekend? There were some buys going on, but for the most part, the teams played.
Yeah, man. So across the NFL, there's a lot of things that are jumping out to me. Chief among them, obviously, I think Helmerism aside, I think that there does need to be some real. And it's not like the Bills losing to the Bengals is a huge deal because the Bengals are a great team, but it's the way that they're losing these games that's so infuriating because it feels like the offense just goes so stagnant and so stale for large portions of the game. And it's like, man, a lot of excuses are being, yes, they're down 4 all pros. That's a very real thing, but not on offense. And that's where they're struggling. So it's pretty frustrating being a Bills fan and also just, being an analyst and knowing how great that team could be and how creative they've been in the past with getting guys open and scoring points. And just feels like that's not there this year. So I'd say that's the biggest takeaway. Philly's takedown of Dallas is a pretty big statement. Philly, it's never sexy with Philly. It's always kind of a little bit ugly, and it's not like Jets ugly or Steelers ugly, but it ain't pretty, man. They beat teams into submission with the run game and with getting big clutch first downs and big AJ Brown pass plays at the right time, and big sacks at the right time. So a lot of respect to the Eagles for their dominance to start the season as well.
Yeah, I mean, both Dallas and Philly could have won that game.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm excited for them to play again in a couple weeks.
Me too.
In terms of Buffalo, I do think that offense has an issue, but I think we talked about that. I think it's in the run game.
Yeah.
They pretty much abandon it within 10 minutes. I've never seen a team abandon the run faster than the Bills are willing to abandon the run game.
Yeah. It's true.
And that's an issue. I wish they would try and at least try and keep it going throughout
They got the horses. They've proven that they got the horses. They just don't have the patience.
No, and I do think the setup they have now with Knox out, where they're starting to run Khalil Shakir in the slot, is actually beneficial to the offense.
I think it's so well.
Yeah, it's better. It's putting some pressure off of Gabe Davis to be that number 2, same as Kincaid, and I think that's creating a more balanced passing offense. But that's not going to work when, I mean, they're going down by 14 so quickly in the game.
Yeah.
And
that is where the defense does kind of play a role in it. I mean, yeah.
That was tough. I mean, Josh Allen's kryptonite through the last, not kryptonite, but like a suppressor has been cover 2 through the years. I mean, if you're up by 14 and you can sit 2 safeties back, he's going to throw into double coverage.
He does not want to take the checkdowns, and it's so
no, he doesn't want to. And that's the run game they have. So it's like if you're going to go up by 14 against the Bills, you're probably going to win because they're not going to run the ball against cover 2. They don't have the personnel to be doing that. Yeah. It's frustrating. I get it as a Bills fan.
I'm so hurt right now, and it's so funny because I remember at the beginning of the season you were like, Josh is playing with house money. Josh has a couple hundred in his Venmo, and he's spending it, and I think he's out of money in his Venmo. When he threw that fucking pick, that was the most mad I've ever been at Josh Allen, and he literally lost the Bills several games with his own 2 hands, and that was the most mad I've ever been because you can see Baby Cook open in the flat. You can see Kincaid open on the next level. And he doesn't. You're right, Zach. And I don't want to admit that. And it's not like you're a detractor. You've been pretty middling to even borderline supportive of the Bills this season. But you never go broke taking a profit. And Josh Allen can't get that through his thick head sometimes. And it's so frustrating.
That's tough. On the flip side, I think my new MVP candidate for this year, not new, I mean, it was definitely up there, but I think Lamar Jackson should be the front runner of the MVP conversation.
Oh, that's not the way I thought you were going with that. I like that.
I think the Ravens are, I mean, I was a little hesitant early, but things are so clicking for them right now. Offense, defensive, they are up there with the best team in the NFL. It's like you have questions with every team. It's like you brought up with the Eagles. It's like, it's not pretty. Their offense isn't running as smoothly as it did last year.
No.
Best D-line in the NFL, probably best O-line in the NFL, but it's not as smooth.
Yeah.
But when I look at the Ravens right now, I'm like, they're getting it down on the run game. Lamar is playing out of his damn mind right now. Some of the passes he's making,
he's a stud. He feels every bit like the 2019 MVP candidate that we all know and love.
Yeah, the only thing he's not doing is running as much, which is fine. That's what they wanted. They said, we're giving you all this money. We're going to get rid of Greg Roman.
Just not as much.
Yeah, not as much.
Still very effective.
We're getting rid of Greg Roman. We're going to pass the ball more, and he's looking like just a top talent quarterback. Yeah. Everything is clicking for them right now. He's looking so good. He would be my MVP candidate from here on out. I think they're going to be tough to beat. They have 3 straight home games now, too. They've traveled more than any other team in the NFL for the first half of the season, and now they are home for most of the second half of the season. They're going to be really tough to beat.
Yeah, I could definitely see Baltimore just kind of being one of those juggernauts going into the playoffs,
It
winning
just feels like they don't
13 or
have a
14.
weakness on their team right now.
They really don't. And I guess if they did, it would maybe be depth. They're always so stretched, so thin when it comes to injuries, and their running back
Sure.
room is, hey, if Keaton Mitchell is the guy we think he is, the guy that the fantasy community has already crowned him to be, talking about overreactions. No disrespect to the
Yeah,
guy,
no,
but
I'm not on the overreaction
but
side of it.
but
I
him
think it'll still be Gus next week.
him
Pretty
and Gus
easily.
and even Justice Hill, they've all been good, but that's a three-headed monster of running backs that were not considered ones or twos to start the season. So
No, I mean this team would be even a next level of dangerous if J.K. Dobbins was still healthy. But regardless of that, they're 7-2.
right,
They're
and
4-1 in away games. The only they're second in the NFL right now. The Chiefs are 7-2, and then the Ravens are 7-2. Right now, and what's even crazier, right now the entire AFC North has winning records and are playoff bound right now.
Yeah.
Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Bengals, all three. That's insane.
Yeah, I am so afraid of the AFC North. They are a powerhouse. The Browns and Steelers are. It's never going to look pretty, but they are going to be competitive in almost every single game. I have so much respect for them. Um, Mike Tomlin just plays winning football. It's just what he does. He's just a great coach. Um,
Yep.
the and the Browns. I mean, yeah, Deshaun back. It wasn't pretty, but it was fine. They got the win. That's what you needed, right? They kind of
I
dominated.
mean, I
the
think
Cardinals.
it was pretty from the defensive side. I mean, they
Yeah.
shut him out.
which is
And,
what you
and
come
Deshaun
to
didn't
expect.
have to do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I definitely am like, yeah, I think the AFC North, the AFC playoff picture is going to be a slugfest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah,
Going back slightly to Lamar, I think what's really interesting, we've had the last 2 years of quarterbacks getting paid just a bucket of money, with Russ when he got his new deal with the Broncos, obviously Deshaun Watson with his insane deal coming out of the suspension.
one of the worst contracts of all time.
Yeah, it should go down that way. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess to be seen, but should go down that way.
I feel like even if he's good, just the fully guaranteed thing, I just think it's a whiff.
Yeah, and no one's going to do it again. So
Yeah.
setting that. But can we talk about how they gave Lamar a bag and he's just came out and been like, yeah, I was worth it. Like, he's the only one that was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess Joe Burrow now too. But even through the first month of the season, Joe Burrow
Yeah.
was all of a sudden like, you just got this massive contract and now you're sucking. But
This year, the quarterback, the pay the quarterback crowd looks very stupid. This year, would you rather have Daniel Jones or a couple years of streamers? That
I was
crowd
on the
looks,
streamer side.
and unfortunately,
I was
I'm one of them. I'm one of the people
you wanted
who said,
the Daniel Jones. Yeah, you said you should sign him. Yeah.
I don't hate Daniel Jones. I think the level the how much they paid him was ridiculous. But the fact that they paid him, I was on board with, because I've been in quarterback purgatory, bro. I've been a fan of a team that can't find one, and it's like musical chairs. If the music stops and you don't have one, you lose. It's that simple.
But I think where the Giants are at right now, and where the Vikings have been for a long time, and where teams end up with what I think the Steelers are going to be in right now. But the Giants are probably going to have a top 5 draft pick this year with Daniel Jones out for the season, torn ACL.
Yeah. Go grab Caleb Williams.
But what are you going to, like, yes, that's probably the right call. And now you have $50 million a year until 2025 on Daniel Jones.
I know.
Like, I don't think they will do that.
Yeah.
Personally, I think they'll stick with Daniel Jones for longer. You just paid him. But I think teams end up doing that too often. And a good example of this, what I feel, is Kenny Pickett. So when the Steelers were going into that draft, they needed a quarterback. Roethlisberger was going up. They have Joshua Dobbs on their roster, who we've now seen to be a competent quarterback for a year.
Might rather have him than Pickett.
I personally, for the money, yeah.
Yeah,
easily.
100%. Yeah, you take the asset allocation out of it, and it's a no-brainer.
Talent-wise, I still think Pickett can do things Dobbs can't. But
Yeah,
let's talk about going into that draft. It was pretty apparent. Everybody was like, "There's no quarterbacks in this draft." No one was drafted top 10. Pickett, I think, was the only one in the first round. don't draft a quarterback if you don't believe. And there's been rumors coming out of Pittsburgh that they don't believe there was a quarterback worthy in that draft. They just need to draft one. Don't do it.
Go sign Jacoby Brissett. He could do exactly what Kenny Pickett's doing. What the hell?
And I think you run into that too often with teams where they don't really believe in a guy, and instead of just getting a quarterback to bridge, taking the talent where it is, they push up for that quarterback, and it doesn't always work out. And I think could you imagine the Steelers right now if, I mean, obviously it's like different ball game, but let's say we're in the question for a better quarterback on that roster. At the 5-3 team they already are. If you don't have Kenny Pickett back there, who are some quarterbacks taken after? Let me look this up. Pickett draft class.
Oh well, I mean that draft class was just atrocious. I don't think.
I'm thinking next year. So I'm saying, so that'd be the 2023 draft, right?
Was Pickett? No, Pickett was a yeah. He might have been a rookie in 2022. Yeah. No.
So
it might have been. Yes, he was. You're right.
So Steelers probably would have been terrible, which means you're looking at a Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson.
You think they should have just held off one more year?
Are you going to tell me right now you would rather have Pickett than the chance at C.J. Stroud after he broke the single game
obviously I wouldn't
record?
rather. There's obviously a 0% chance, but that's in a vacuum though. Like if they
in a vacuum, of course,
who you starting outside of, like let's say they don't have Pickett for 2022, who's the starter and how do they end up performing? It's Mike Tomlin. Do you think he's going to coach a team that
he's probably still getting a winning roster?
You know what I mean? Like
so it's tough.
It's a weird situation. Quarterback purgatory and quarterback hell is the worst place to be. And that's the one thing, like it's so funny. Sometimes I'm like on my soapbox about being sad about the Bills, and then all my friends who are fans of teams that don't have quarterbacks are like, shut the fuck up. You have a quarterback. And I'm like, okay, I will shut the fuck up, actually. I will. That's fair.
That's a fair point. And as I follow the Vikings as close as I do any other team. But I mean, Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback they've ever had. Well, not ever, but for the last 20 years, most likely. And him getting hurt and being out for the season, I think is the most likely that he comes back to the Vikings now rather than before. I think now there's going to be questions on his health. Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. And
such a gut punch. Your team
they're still winning games. Josh Dobbs won that game last week.
That was awesome.
Yeah, great. I mean, I love Josh Dobbs.
That's football porn right there, man. That is football porn.
The Vikings are probably going to end again with a middle round pick. They usually always have a middle round pick. So they're not going to be in contention for one of those top two quarterbacks in Drake May and Caleb Williams, most likely. With Cousins' injury, there's going to be some questions of a team signing him to a massive contract coming off of an Achilles. Whether or not that's reasonable is up to be decided.
Right.
But if there was a chance the Vikings were going to bring him back, it's going to be on a lesser contract. And I think that could happen now. I think coming off an Achilles, he could say, I want to stay in Minnesota. I want to do it. Let me take a pay cut, kind of similar to what you've seen. He already has the millions of guaranteed. We've seen quarterbacks take pay cuts to stay on teams where they want to be. I think we could see that with him and see him come back, them take a young quarterback to sit behind him and have him again next year, which I think would be now best case scenario for them.
And you also know for 100% fact that Justin Jefferson wants him back. And that's kind of a huge thing. When you have a franchise wide receiver, you kind of have to like bend the will of the team to what they want.
And it also helps you sell the contract to Kirk. If you're saying like, hey, we can't pay you $40 million a year because we're about to pay Justin Jefferson $25 million a year.
Literally.
Like, if you take a pay cut and re-sign, then we can sign him. Like, that makes it a little easier than rather than just being like, we don't want to pay you.
Oh, and coming off the Achilles, his price tag is down anyway. So I absolutely do. I think that's a perfectly fine move. I mean, if Kirk signs like a 2-year, like $70 million deal or something like that, like fully guaranteed or close
that's what
to
he's been signing. We need less. It has to be less than that for them to re-sign him.
At his
There's
age.
no way.
And with the injury. No, I don't know, man. No, his last one was like, wasn't it like 3 for $90 all guaranteed? I could have sworn he got like a $30 million a year deal that was like all guaranteed at one point.
So the contract he's on right now is 2 year, $66 million fully guaranteed. So $33 million a year.
So you think he should go for like what, like 25 mil or like
Yeah,
30?
his other one was no. I'm
I could
sorry,
see
that
that.
was his old one.
At his
This
age,
one,
I could see that.
He's making 35 to 40 million a year.
Yeah, I could see him. I could see him coming down a little bit. In
Right.
like
If he's in the 25 to 30
range.
range, they'll probably re-sign him. But he didn't want that. He wanted more. He wants to be up there.
I just
and
think maybe
after the Achilles, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I was talking to James Cohen on the reception show. He was bringing up, do you think it's career ending for Cousins? He said there was a 60% chance that he's done.
60%? He's not coming
that's
back?
Crazy.
That's high. I think it's more like 40. Back. I think it's the flip side. Like, there's a chance well, I thought the same thing about Rodgers, but this man's out there slinging bombs, before the game, throwing 50-yard passes on a recently.
Yeah, let's get Kirk on that Rodgers recovery track.
Seriously,
please.
I thought the same thing. Same with Trey White.
Whatever voodoo magic is going on those lines, get Kirk in on it.
Seriously, I mean, we gotta wait and see, right? Like, I mean, Rodgers seems like he's the guinea pig of this experimental new surgery, but I mean, if anybody's gonna do it in stride, it's him.
Yeah, my bad. Reading some news up here, but nothing worth.
You are
nothing
so
worth
good.
bringing up on the show,
sir. I think it might be time for playoff percolation. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it. Get the little playoff percolator in here.
Let's do
it. And we're gonna bring up some players that we think are gonna help you in your fantasy playoffs. I mean, we had a buy and sell segment last week for trade for, but this one's gonna be a little looser. Just kind of some general players, whether or not they'll be waiver wire picks, stashes, or players to go get to help you through your playoff run, because it's that time for some of us, not necessarily for all of us. I'm like 8-1 in my dynasty league, but it's fine. Also, I made playoffs in Scott Fishbowl officially.
Let's go, dude! Congrats.
So you need 13 wins to get into the playoffs for Scott Fishbowl, and I'm already there, 14-4. We play against the league median, so you get like 2 wins per week if you do that. So 14-4, baby. I'm in the playoffs. We're good to go.
Go win
the
that
Scott Fishbowl run continues. CJ Stroud carrying my roster right now.
Yeah. Dude, in my Dynasty Superflex, I have CJ Stroud and Dak. So I didn't really have to play anybody else yesterday. They both won me the game.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
It was like 90 points between two.
Scott Fishbowl in this league is heavily weighted towards quarterbacks and tight ends. So I've actually been playing bully tight end, starting usually 3 to 4 tight ends a week in my flex.
Insane. That's actually insane.
TJ Hawkinson also been carrying me, and then I usually play David Njoku and either Trey McBride or Zach Ertz. That's how I'm getting my wins, man. That's how I'm getting my wins.
I love it, man. You're a beast.
But all right, playoff players you're looking for. What do you got for me? You throw one out first.
Yeah, so my big thing right now to start with is I'm looking at teams with favorable playoff schedules. So I want to see, you click on them on Sleeper, Yahoo, whatever. I want to see the teams, the matchups that they have in weeks 15, 16, and 17. I want them to be green, especially for that position. So I would say the 3 teams that I'm targeting most is players on the Eagles, players on the Bengals, and players on the Bills. These teams have nothing but green in their playoff matchups. I will say I think the Bills might be up against Dallas in the first week of the playoffs, but I kind of feel like the game will be shootouty enough that so long as you're not playing, like, maybe James Cook might be the only one in that first week that I would avoid. But so long as you're not playing those other guys, I think you're good. The Eagles play the Giants. The Seahawks, the Giants, and the Cardinals. That is such a favorable stretch. That could be, especially for players like DeAndre Swift. He was your buy low player last week. And it's looking like, upon doing my research, he might be, like, when we joke about league winner and where that term is applicable or not, in every sense of the word, you can use DeAndre Swift as a league winner. So I'm doubling down on Zach's take from last week. Go grab your Eagles players, specifically DeAndre Swift. I do love the AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Well, depending on his injury.
Fractured forearm officially.
And is there a timetable?
No timeline. They assume he's going to be back this season, but I would estimate he's out at least 4 to 6 weeks.
So probably IR, and that's theoretically at the moment back for the playoffs, but ouch. That's going to hurt my Dynasty Superflex
Likely to have
team.
surgery on Monday. The hope is he will be out around 4 weeks. Yeah, after undergoing surgery. So,
ouch. Anyways, so yeah, so Eagles, Bengals, Bengals are up against in the coveted 3 matchups. You're looking at games against Minnesota, which hammer them. Pittsburgh, which right, you'd think, oh, they have a good defense, whatever, but they're green against receivers. And I think that might be where you get them. Their secondary is really weak. Will Levis, despite not throwing any touchdown passes, threw for almost 250 yards last week. And the Chiefs, which again, good defense, profiles to be a shootout. I'm looking at that game as, the revenge for the playoffs last year. So, buy your Bengals, buy your Bills, buy your Eagles as my positives.
Do you have any concern for Joe Mixon? I mean, he's had his 2 best games of the season these last 2 weeks, RB7, RB11 against San Francisco and Buffalo.
Good matchups.
Not coincidentally,
right? Not good matchups.
Not San Fran, but Buffalo was. Funnily enough, he ran better against San Fran than Buffalo. But regardless,
he fell into
2 touchdowns in those games. Yeah. But playoffs, he's got Minnesota, Pittsburgh, KC, like you brought up. Minnesota over the first couple of weeks was a really great matchup to exploit, but their defense has come on.
Yeah,
I mean they are stopping the run.
Yeah,
they are blitzing and stopping the run. Pittsburgh also easily exploitable, but then they now have their defensive lineman back. What is his name? Why am I forgetting who that was?
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, look up their D tackle for me.
It's not Highsmith, is it?
No. They have their edge rusher. Yeah, Hayward. Hayward's back. That'll be much better. And then KC has just been flooring the run game. Like you just don't run against KC. So that's 3 weeks in the playoffs that if Joe Mixon doesn't get a touchdown, are you trying to move?
That's actually a good caveat because I really wanted to start this segment as general as I could with Bills, Bengals, and Eagles having good matchups, but that's a good caveat. I think Mixon might be the biggest asterisk out of all of the ones that we just talked about. Yeah, and also too with his age,
you might be able to move Mixon for Swift right now. Like this is possible.
You'd have
Swift
might be Mixon plus, but I would try.
Swift hasn't outscored Mixon the last 2 weeks. I mean, Swift has been 13-8. Fine, he's on bye this week too, so there is a chance you can make that move
if you have a winning team. And this is one of the things I meant to make this caveat at the beginning. I screwed this up. My fault. You got to make the playoffs in order to win in the playoffs. So if you
have to make the playoffs.
So if you're a desperate, scrapping and clawing for wins team, you might not have the luxury of handpicking your playoff roster. So get there first. And that, sorry, before I get to my next part, Zach, why don't you tell me teams you're looking at, players you're looking at, like you said, very casual approach at the playoff percolation.
You brought up the Eagles. I think that's a great one. Devonta Smith specifically would be who I'm targeting. With Goddard out for 4 weeks, his target share should go up. Games Goddard has been out, he has averaged almost 2 more receptions per game. You give him 2 more receptions on an offense, he could do a lot with it. He's already been good. He now has 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. I think, right? That was last week too. Anyway, a 29-yarder against Dallas this week. He will continue to be great.
So good.
He'll be pushing wide receiver 1 numbers as long as Goddard is out. There's enough room for both of those wide receivers to eat. So I love that call. Other players I'm looking at, I'm kind of in like a sneakier realm. I do think Deontay Johnson is less sneaky now that he's scored his touchdown, but he's got a really great stretch to end the year. The next 3 are some of the worst against wide receivers. I think he's going to get enough targets that it's not going to matter. But then you got Arizona, New England, Colts, Cincinnati, Seattle, who are all really easy matchups, except for Cincinnati against wide receivers. But we've seen wide receiver 1s still be good against Cincinnati, i.e. Stephon Diggs 2 nights ago, having a good game.
Yep.
Took a while.
That last touchdown,
but he got there.
Saved. I've that stack in so many leagues. That saved me in so many games.
But Arizona, bottom of the barrel, and should be a little bit more of a shootout with Kyler back. New England, terrible against wide receivers. Colts, middle of the pack. It's just he's getting the targets. He should be a back end 1, high end 2 for the rest of the season. And I think that can be super valuable. So I would look Deontay Johnson's way if you can. It'll be tough after this last game, though.
I think you're spot on, man. And he did have a great game. Maybe, I mean, this is like 5D chess, but like maybe you can take advantage of somebody who thinks they're selling high. And like, you know, kind of be like, well, we know who Deontay is though, right? Like, you know, we know what's around the corner, and maybe you can go fleece them. Something I would think about. So good call on the Deontay and the Devontae. Those are both players that I'm very interested in. Is it? I always wonder, is it Devonta or Devontae for Smith on the Eagles? Is it? I always say
Devonta.
I feel like I've gone back.
Is it Devontae? No, I think it's Devonta because there's no E at the end.
There is no E at the end, but I feel like I've heard it pronounced both ways. Let's go with Ta until proven otherwise. Hey man, I got a team that is the absolute punching bag of the fantasy community right now, and it's rightfully so, and that's fucking Arthur Smith's Falcons. I hate them. Everybody hates them. I mean, you can't not if you're a fantasy player, and the amount of trolling that Arthur Smith does, giving a rushing touchdown to Jonnu. What a clown. Remember how we talked about like good NFL coach, bad fantasy coach? I don't think so anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I think that ship is stale.
You can no longer go on the excuse, well, he's winning games. He's not.
Yeah,
he just lost to a quarterback that got there the week prior.
Yeah. So I told you if there was a fantasy god, he'd get fired. And I don't mean that. Obviously, he's a human being. We don't want people to lose their jobs, but he will not be getting fired probably anytime soon.
I disagree with you. I would love him to lose his job.
Oh,
he's a son of a billionaire. He's fine. I don't worry about him.
He's just such a curmudgeon.
When I say I don't want people to lose their jobs, it's because I don't want them to lose their income and their financial stability.
Yeah.
He's the son of a billionaire. He's not losing anything
on the human
if he gets
side
fired.
of it. Yeah, it's try not to be toxic, but God's working on all of us. Regardless, the Falcons, especially for the running backs, week 15, Carolina, cupcake. Week 16, Indianapolis, possibly a sweeter and more tastier cupcake. Week 17, the tastiest and sweetest cupcake of all, Chicago. That is a league-winning trio of games. And God, I wish it was simpler, and I wish you could just say Bijan. But Algier might be the play. It's really ugly. I mean, you're looking at in his last 3 games, you're looking at RB17, RB59, and RB19. And I feel like you could acquire Algier a lot easier. I don't think he's going away. He does have a stretch of mediocre to bad games in the middle of the season, but that's 2 out of his last 3 as an RB2 or better. So I don't know, man.
Obviously, I would like to go Bijan there.
Yeah.
If
safer,
you can,
right?
but
feels safer.
Based off in like name value, you're probably not going to get Bijan. He's seeing 0 goal line opportunities, just not happening.
Yeah.
And Arthur Smith has just proven that he doesn't change. Like we always be like, maybe he'll realize it and go through the back. He's not going to change.
Yeah.
Until he's gone. And I do think that will come, but I don't know if it will happen soon enough for it to be for fantasy viable. But yeah, killer matchups through the back half of the year. If you can get one of them, I would go for Bijan, but I'm not giving up a top 5 back to do it.
Because it's too risky. Yeah, you have to take a middling piece plus to get Bijan. You need a team that's like, hopefully the Bijan manager, which it wouldn't surprise me, but hopefully they're losing. And maybe you can convince them to liquidate Bijan for 2 starters. And you can go out there and maybe lose a couple more games. Like if you're like 7-1 or 7-2 or like 8-1 and you're like locked in for the playoffs, maybe go out there and mortgage your chance to win more regular season games, because seeding doesn't really matter in fantasy football. Like, let's be real. If you make the dance, that's all that really matters. You just have to,
unless you have a bye.
That's true. The bye is, but I don't know about you, but I feel like my guys come out real sluggish after the bye. I feel.
I love nothing more than having a bye.
That's
because funny. God, it's just a whole week that you don't have to stress. You're
Kick
just
your
like,
feet
all right,
up.
This is great.
Yeah.
100%. I'm gonna move to the tight end position. There's a couple that I think Sam Laporta would be one that I'm really looking for, but is going to be near impossible to get off of someone's roster. But let's say you can snag Sam Laporta. There are very few tight ends I'd rather have. Actually, there's only one tight end I'd rather have rest of the season than Sam Laporta. There's Travis Kelce. Anything else, if you can move for Sam Laporta, I would. He plays Chicago, Denver, Minnesota, and Dallas through the last 4 weeks, who are no lower than 18th against tight end. So that's just a great stretch. But hard to get. So let's talk a little more bottom of the barrel here. I think David Njoku is going to be a great tight end to have through the back of the year.
Yeah.
You know, last week I brought up Deshaun Watson. Low dirty play. Was a little dirty this week, but still 20 plus fantasy points against a game that the other team didn't score any points. So he has a great schedule coming up. I think it'll be better than what you want. And I think people are really, really, really low on Deshaun Watson right now. So you can go get Deshaun Watson. And I think David Njoku's on a lot of waiver wires. He just had 2 weeks with touchdowns. So maybe someone snagged him, grabbed him with buys and everything. Yeah. But then he plays Baltimore this week, Pittsburgh next week, who are the 2nd best and the 4th best against tight ends. So it could be a little rough. Could be a little rough. But then you got Denver.
For what we're talking about, that's fine.
Yeah, this is just playoffs.
Yeah.
After that, he's got Denver, Rams, who are 31st and 30th, and then Jacksonville, Chicago, Houston, Jets, all really low against tight ends. Should have a really good stretch of the year. He sees a ton of involvement. He's out there all the time seeing routes. He's starting to see the targets. You saw a lot with PJ Walker. Now you're seeing it with Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson moves forward, I do think that David Njoku be a really great option back of the year. And then a little bit lower on the barrel, just slightly farther down, I do think Trey McBride is really worth taking a look at. There are very few tight ends that are seeing first read targets, which are like a percentage of the time that you're the number 1 read for that play, which is tracked by fantasy points data, if you want to take a look at that. But he's seeing a near 30% first read target share in his last couple of games with Zach Ertz out. He's been great with them. Obviously, this last week, Clayton Tune was playing. They didn't score any points. He was not great. We're getting Kyler back this week. He might have a little rust, but Atlanta, pretty bad against tight ends. And then Houston, Rams, bad against tight ends. Bad thing about Trey McBride, he has a week 14 bye, which is egregious. I hate that. I hate the first week of playoffs, you have a bye. What are you doing?
No, I think the first week of playoffs would be the 15th.
Oh, 15. Yeah. So week before.
Still not great if you're fighting to get in, but I mean, hopefully you're already locked up, you know.
Right. Then week 1 against the playoffs is against San Francisco. They're a brutal matchup against tight end. Good. But if you make it past that, 16, 17, you got Chicago and Philly, who are both bottom 5 and 6 against tight ends. Yeah. He could explode there. I think Kyler will get back into a swing. He's the clear-cut number 2 option on that team right now. And just seeing a ton of targets. So I think he is a great option moving forward.
Absolutely, man. And that's a good call. You're right. That is pretty bottom of the barrel. I will say I found a couple tight ends to avoid in the fantasy playoffs. And it does not make me happy because, look, you and I've talked to you ad nauseum about my dynasty tight end position because, you know, I have George Kittle in a dynasty and I've always felt like I was the second luckiest guy in the league at the tight end position. But San Francisco's tight end stretch in the playoffs is nauseating. We're looking at the Cardinals, who are actually pretty good against tight ends, Baltimore, who are absolute one of the best teams in the league against tight ends, and then if you survive those weeks, you do get a nice little cupcake against the Commanders, and also Kittle. I feel like Kittle, when it's a bad team, I feel like he owns those matchups. The problem for me is, Zach, I'm in a league where I have Kincaid as well. And I feel like, given that I already told you to go target Bills pass catchers for those playoff weeks, I feel like I might have to just do it. I feel like I might have to just roll out the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid triple stack, because how can I bench Kincaid when Kittle's matchups are orange and red, you know?
I don't mind playing Kittle for the next couple of weeks, but
yeah,
Debo
not the
is
next
coming
two.
back.
The next two is
Jacksonville, Tampa Bay,
and and Buffalo has
tight ends.
Denver and the Jets, who are not good against tight ends.
You want to keep Kittle for the bye, but no, I agree. I think Kittle has been doing great. Debo will be back though, and we've seen when all 3 of these guys are healthy that it's just so volatile for who's getting the points.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I would be looking to trade away George Kittle, and I think you have a good opportunity to do that.
I think you're right.
After the way he's playing,
yeah.
If you can move, like what we were talking about, if you can move George Kittle, in a deal for Sam Laporta, I would do that in a blink of an eye.
And it's a dino too. So wow, I gotta get to work after this.
That'd be tough. Yeah.
This playoff percolator, you guys, it's this is for us. Like, you guys get to listen and reap the benefits, but I'm taking so many notes right now. I'm gonna go send a million offers after this. Another tight end to avoid, Zach. We're looking at triple red in the fantasy playoffs, and 3 out of his next 4 matchups are green. So this, again, another selling opportunity, but stay the hell away from Dalton Schultz if you want to win in your playoffs. Dalton Schultz, we're looking at week 15, Titans, red. Week 16, Browns, red. Week 17, those same damn Titans, red. Come on, man. You can't do it. You can't. And I am nervous for Stroud, given that those are 2 games against Vrabel and the Browns' vaunted defense in the fantasy playoffs. Man, is it fade Texan o'clock, especially in redraft?
I'm not as worried. I do think Tennessee funnels to the pass a lot. They're great against tight ends, but wide receivers tend to have some good success against Tennessee. Okay, so I think Stroud can do it there. Tank and Nico Collins have both been heavily involved. You saw Noah Brown this week. I'm fine with fading Schultz because I think he's been like 2 touchdowns this last week. Great. And then touchdown the week before. Great. I don't mind fading him. Those are terrible matchups for tight ends, but Texans as a whole, I'm still pretty confident that they'll be fine.
Trade Schultz after the Denver game because
hold on to him now.
We might have a deadline though. Yeah, I might move Schultz the second you have your deadline. The day before, move him because 3 out of the next 4 games are gold against tight ends. So,
well, let's wrap this up. I'm going to give a couple defenses that have just really nice playoff schedules if you want to prep in the meantime. Some that you can probably get now that have good stretches until then. The Saints obviously have been a really good defense. They're going on bye in week 11. If you can snag them after, they have a really nice schedule. First week they play the Giants. Second week they play the Rams. And then Tampa Bay, not as great. Rams defense, kind of same situation. They're on bye this week. But then you got Arizona, Cleveland, Baltimore. May want to avoid that. But then Washington, New Orleans, and Giants in the playoffs. That's a great, great stretch. And then my personal favorite, going to be really hard to get at this point, but the Browns defense from week 12 on are just great matchups. They have the best defense in the NFL. And then they got Denver, Rams, Jacksonville, Chicago, first week of the playoffs, Houston, Jets. I'm not scared of any of those matchups. I would love to run the Browns out for the rest of the year, to be honest.
Houston a little bit. I think Houston it might be matchup proof, but
I think the Browns are matchup proof when you come to defense. They're probably going to sack Stroud a couple of times.
Yeah.
They should be able to limit them scoring. I'm not going to drop them necessarily for that week. If you want to take a sub for that week, if you want to get someone that's got like, let's say you could flip to like the Eagles for a week, sure. But they have brutal schedule coming up. I'm not really avoiding the Browns just because they're playing the Texans.
Yeah, man. No, I think that's a good call, man. There's the fantasy defense thing is so tough because the NFL is so weird. Like anything can happen. And I also find personally that maybe the smartest thing to do when it comes to fantasy defenses in the playoffs is to stack defenses in the weeks leading up so that you have one for each week.
Yeah, one for each week.
It's the chances that you find a team that you can play for all 3 weeks is very low.
Right, like the Dolphins, week 1 of the playoffs. Honestly, leading up to it, have some of the best matchups against defenses. But then they play Dallas and Baltimore in the last 2. You're not doing that.
No.
Go pick up the Jets for the last 2. They play Washington and then Cleveland. You're gonna have to pay attention. If you can stack 2 defenses on your roster, get rid of a bench stash you don't need. Maybe that running backup. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Well, man, appreciate you having here. Appreciate everybody for listening. Go tune in. We're here on Spotify. We're here on Apple. You can follow us now on YouTube, us on the Twitters. Thanks, everybody, for hopping in the coffee shop.
Hell yeah, guys. No, this was really fun, Zach. Great show. Looking forward to getting into some Thanksgiving talk with you next episode. Continuing to get into that NBA stuff. And, another day in the freaking coffee shop, man. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you all.